Hello everyone, and welcome to all our listeners to Connic's first ever live F&B webinar.
My name's Rachel Webber. I'm an account director and self-confessed email geek. And I'm very pleased to be joined today by Rosie Swaffer, who's head of marketing at Meatmaker.
Hello.
So for everyone listening in, you're going to have the opportunity to ask questions throughout until the end on your text box as you're dialed in. Feel free to ask questions as we go. We'll do our best to answer them as we receive them in. And if we receive any questions that we don't get around to answering during the webinar today, we'll be following you up with an email, hopefully being able to answer your questions then. So today's webinar will have a strong focus on the F&B sector, but for anyone listening who's not in F&B, the concepts and ideas that Rosie and I will be discussing can be taken on by any sector. So hopefully you'll still come away with some great new ideas. But for any of our listeners who are not so familiar with Connic, just a little bit about us as well. So we're a loyalty-based CRM, and we are in London. And our clients use our platform to set up loyalty programs and manage their customers. And also a large part of what we do as a business as well is we empower our customers to create and broadcast your email campaigns that create those offer codes and the loyalty programs. And certainly when I started out in the industry about 8 years or so ago, it wasn't uncommon for me to hear companies say, well, what is email marketing? So you can see as well, we've come so far from that time 8 years later, and it's fair to say that email can be so successful that it's not surprising how much you can see the figures have increased from 2017 to 2019 in terms of email sends, and some of the increases that we can expect to see as well moving on. And one thing we'd like you to get out of listening into this webinar today is just simply how effective loyalty is, more so than just sending out offers and discounts. And certainly as well, how loyalty can be really effective for allowing you to connect to your customer base. So today's webinar is all about making your emails more human, which is really important, right? Because when we talk about being human in your emails, you're actually revealing the human side of your business, which is the side that your customers are buying into and has the potential to build loyalty. And ultimately, for your loyalty program to elevate from just being successful to bringing in what I would call monumental ROI. So what we talk about when we talk about being human in emails is allowing your customers to emotionally engage with you and to have that connection with you as a business. So my opening challenge to everyone listening in, have a think for a minute about the emails that you receive from brands. And I want you to think, are there any brands that you receive emails from that affect you in a positive emotional way? So by that I mean you're happy when you see their emails appear in your inbox, you can't wait to read the content, and the subject line has really nailed the way that you're thinking right now. So I'm going to ask Rosie about your preference of emails, and are there any brands that you receive emails from that you feel that you can connect with?
Who immediately springs to mind is the Breakfast Club, which is a group of cafes that does breakfast, funnily enough, and their emails always make me smile. I like their tone of voice, they use great imagery, even their subject lines, they're just really, really punchy and make you want to read on. There's always a lot of information in there, but it's not really hard sell. It feels more like an update and kind of social calendar. I actually forgot to re-permission to their emails. I was having this discussion, I think with Gemma, like my account director here, and yeah, she was saying which emails do you like, and I said the Breakfast Club, and I went to go and get them up in my email inbox, and actually I hadn't even re-permissioned during the GDPR madness, so I have done, and they're landing back in my inbox. And yeah, I think they're great. In particular, their subject lines just, I think, kill it. As well as that, non-F&B, Topshop I always open because I just want to see their new in. Ditto Marks & Spencer's, which kind of touches on loyalty, as I'm a Sparks card holder and they update their offers every 2 weeks. There's a lot of 20% off expensive beauty products that are always well worth having. Speaking of expensive beauty products, Space NK do great emails as well. Really simple. They always tend to lead with a GIF that kind of populates with beautiful imagery of the products that I'm going to spend loads of money on. But yeah, I open these emails because I like the brands and I like their products, and I genuinely want to know what they've got to say. And I think it kind of works hand in hand with the rest of your marketing strategy, because no matter how good looking your emails are, if you don't actually care what the brand's got to say, your open rate's going to be low, and I'm just going to want to look at them. So
yeah, absolutely. And it sounds as well, speaking as someone on that recipient list, that you're really familiar with the content and you are looking forward to it. And I think it's so important as a brand that when you send emails that you are on board with the way your customers are thinking. That's how you're going to make that connection with them and ultimately cut through the noise of all those other emails that are coming through that could otherwise be in the same pot as you and just get deleted.
absolutely.
And I think for me, what I find most exciting about receiving emails from brands is the feeling that they understand me and that they know me as a customer. And I don't think I've got any one favourite brand that I receive emails from, but just a couple from my perspective that I feel are really effective. Jamie Oliver's restaurants send out awesome emails. So I'm a member of the Jamie Oliver Gold Club, Unashamed as well. And their emails are really concise. It's just, they're so easy to digest, no pun intended there at all. But what you see is what you get with them. Simple message. And I feel as though, as a reader, it's all there for me. I don't feel as though this is the company just promoting itself over and over again. So yeah, I feel that those ones do really well. I think when we talk about getting to know our customers, it's really important that we allow time for this and we do this in the most organic way as possible. And normally this starts off with a sign-up form that you tend to find on the website. And this is how customers would sign up to receive your emails. So Rosie, why don't you tell us a bit about your sign-up process for Meat Liquor?
Firstly, I'll tell everyone how they can sign up to the Meat Mailer, which is what we call our email marketing. If you go to www.meatliquor.com/sign-up, there it is.
I have to recommend them as well.
Thanks. Yeah, we keep it really simple. Immediately, it's back to our brand tone of voice. We just say, in a nutshell, this is a bribe. Sign up and we will give you news, randomness and free shit. That's what we call it. In order to get through the spam filters, we actually spell it S #T, but people love it. I think we've got 7 or 8 fields, all mandatory, purely because it helps us to get to know the customers better. Male, female, postcode, so we can really do more targeted email outs to people who are interested in specific sites because they're not all the same. I'm really keen to add a vegetarian and vegan field because we've massively enhanced our offering and actually want to be able to target our comms towards that as well. Plus, it's really interesting to know actually how many people of our database are our primary kind of target audience, and the majority of our database are 30 to 34, which is interesting. Yeah. So yeah, we don't want to ask too many questions on it, but also we want to get enough data to get a clear idea of who our customer is. Absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right about not asking too much, because sometimes a long form can seem a little bit prohibitive for someone signing up, and it's almost a bit like equivalent of being sat next to that weirdo in the wedding, isn't it? Who just asks you absolutely everything and you can't get away. So I think you're absolutely right, and it's super important as well that when you are asking for information on that sign up form, that the questions you're asking is allowing for you to do some relevant segmentation on your database as well. So those vegetarians can expect those free shiitake mushrooms, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. The other thing to remember as well with sign up forms, and this kind of goes back to not asking for too much information, but a lot of the time what people say on a sign up form isn't gospel, right? So if you imagine when a doctor asks you how many units of alcohol do you drink per week, it's probably going to be a different answer they get to if you're signing up for a wine appreciation course, right? So I would also suggest that by learning about your customers, I would do this by actually watching what they do online. So seeing which of your emails are getting engaged with, what are your audience actually responding to, and actually basing a lot of your email sends on behavioural triggers as opposed to just flat out newsletters with some with information and news in there. And there's some actually great functionality in the Conic platform as well that allows that. So for example, one of our clients, Starbucks, does some awesome triggered emails. They send to you something on your birthday, which I believe that you guys do as well. And also, when you're halfway as a customer, as a member of their loyalty program, when you're halfway to receiving a complimentary hot drink, they send you a triggered email halfway through saying, keep this going, you're doing great, you're nearly there with your free hot drinks. So yes, keep going with that. And I think as well, once someone's actually signed up, can't stress the importance of that thank you email enough. Do you guys send a thank you email?
We do. Again, we keep it short and snappy. We say thanks for signing up. We reiterate the fact that we will never spam them. because we won't.
Yeah.
It's not what we're about. Yeah, we just say thank you. We put a map at the bottom with all of the different sites, because they might be completely new to the brand and not be aware that there's 11, soon to be 12 of us. Yeah, and just reiterate that it's free shit, news and randomness, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a great ethos to have. And certainly I've got a friend who used to work in a TGI Fridays, and his mission, not just personally, but from his boss given to all the staff, was to ensure that his guests walk out happier than they were when they walk in. And I think that's an awesome incentive to give your staff. And if that can come across in your emails, that would be fantastic. And I think it's a great quality to include in your emails, and it really will come across. And that does bring us on to our next tip, actually, which is to not be that person who only contacts you when they want something. So we've all got that person in mind who we never hear from at all. And when you see the name in your inbox, you think, oh no, here we go, they want something off me. So it's really important to make sure that when you're sending your emails, they're not coming over as just too salesy. And are you always asking your customers to do something, or are you wanting to give back to your customers? And Meat Liquor does that really well. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, we always lead with the free shit, whatever the offer be, be it money off or an add-on or something like that. Then we always do a bit of news, so it might be a new site, it might be a new menu item, something like that. And then often the last bit, because we like to keep it short and snappy, will be a piece of user-generated content. I think last time we used a picture of a dog that had been had a piece of our merch, like a baseball cap, put on it. And we use that at the end. Obviously, we asked the customer, gave them some free food in exchange, because obviously that's a that's give and take type thing. But yeah, we keep it short and snappy. We try to keep it fun, and again, not too salesy. Just absolutely not what our customers want.
Absolutely, and you guys have a really low unsubscribe rate as well, which I personally love, and that does just pay testament to how engaged your customers are with your emails. And I think as well, it's really important just to get into that headspace of your customers. And I have another question or a challenge, I suppose, for everyone that's listening in. I want you to ask yourself: do you know wholeheartedly why your customers go to your restaurants? So is it just that they want to spend money? I'm guessing probably not. Or is it because they actually want a social gathering? Do they want to have something that's quite Instagrammable at the night? And something I see, certainly when I'm eating out, when customers receive their food or their drink from the waiters, the first thing I see them do is take photos of their food before they even go near touching it. They don't even care about eating it. They just want to photograph it. And I've even seen people videoing the cheers and then filling about on their mobile phones, putting a filter on it, cropping it, repeating it,
boomerang,
making it into a GIF, and then putting it on Instagram before they even take their first sip. So what do you think brings customers into Meat Liquor?
I mean, I've got to echo that. I work for my restaurants kind of 3 to 4 days a week, and that is the first thing the majority of people do. You watch their food be delivered to them, and they whip out their phone and start taking pictures of it. It's all I can do to not go, Meatgram, tag us, or use the geo tag. Yeah, I don't do that, but I often want to.
No, I think you've got some great concepts in there, definitely, and you're absolutely right. And I love the fact that you firsthand see your customers. And you know, I think it's all about remembering that the customer is right at the centre of absolutely everything. I think one of the most successful marketing campaigns I've ever seen, actually, just in the last few years, I think we all remember the Coca-Cola campaign, where they actually replaced the Coke brand on the tins with people's first names. I love that, because I found myself buying Coke, even if it wasn't for me, it was for someone else that I knew. And I think there's nothing more selfless as a brand than to actually make this wholeheartedly about your customers.
And it's great for the gram.
It is great for the gram. It is great for the gram. And we'll talk about UGC as well a little bit. And I think it's mentioned in one of our slides as well, this concept of your customers being at the centre of everything. And I mean, you had a story, Rosie, about a couple from Croydon, I believe it was, who actually had a first-hand top quality experience with Meat Liquor.
Absolutely. So they messaged us just saying, just wanted to thank you guys, we love the brand so much, we came on our first date here, we come for every celebration here, and we actually bought our first house recently, and we were stuck between two, and actually one of the deciding factors was the fact that Deliveroo would deliver Meat Liquor to our new address. And I just thought that was fabulous, and I put it onto our Instagram story, and sent them a message saying thanks so much for sharing this, like, we'd love to buy you a drink, let us know next time you come in. Put that onto Instagram. immediately sort of 2 or 3 other people said, oh, we've got a love story, a Meetgram, and we put it on Meetgram, and more people told us, and within about half an hour, a dozen people had told us about how they go there for special occasions, how they fall in love there, and it was just really, really lovely. And then when those customers actually went into the restaurant on Saturday night last week, they tagged us in a load of photos saying thanks for our free drink Meetgram, and yeah, it's just really nice to give something back. And actually it's really nice to know, it sounds a bit trite, that people are making memories in our restaurants.
Absolutely. And when we think about being human in our emails as well, I think it's fantastic that you've got some actual stories that as a brand you will tell with pride, and that will come across. And I think it brings us quite nicely onto our next concept here, which is understanding the difference between what we want to say as a brand and what customers want to hear. Because for that couple that you just described, this whole story with Meat Liquor will stay with them for such a long time. And we've talked about UGC as well in just a few moments ago, and there's some really great ways that you can pull UGC into what you do as a brand. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, I've got a debate for us, which is, what do you feel about personalising your emails, Rosie?
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed this before. I have a massive fear of it. We don't do it. It's not something that's been suggested to me, which I'm really, really glad about. We get around it by just saying, greetings meat fans, or hi meat family, or anything like that. I just don't think it's necessary, and I think the margin for error is enormous. Like you say, databases aren't entirely accurate in terms of what names people put in, and I have a massive fear of doing that. The number of emails that I've had where it's like, hey miss, or hey, and there's like a customer number, or just all sorts of things. For us, I don't feel the need to. It's it's up there with hitting the send button for me. It's just another thing that can go wrong.
Absolutely. I've seen a pretty epic fail myself. I received an email once from a gym, so it's not an F&B example as such, but this gym had contacted me to say, dear XXXXX, thank you for joining our gym. Your PIN number is XXXXX, and it was a little bit horrific to read, not gonna lie, and it sort of didn't really put the brand in the best light for me as a reader. However, I will say there's some positives in there as well. I do think that it's possible to personalise your email in other ways than just the first name. So again, slightly different example. This one's a bit more of a retail example for me, but one of my favourite brands that sends out email is Sweaty Betty, the sportswear. And honestly, if I could say that there was a brand that I did connect with on an emotional level, it would be Sweaty Betty, to the point where I've been known to have friends take my phone off me if they know that I'm in my emails and Sweaty Betty's just emailed me, because otherwise I'm just going to end up going on their website, buying a new cute pair of leggings, and ending up broke at the end of the month. Really, that's on a good day. But I am a little bit addicted to their emails, and they never once put Hi Rachel at the top of it. But what they have done is send to me based upon the store that I'm most likely to go to, and the types of clothes that I'm most likely to buy, the size that I'm into. So they do some fantastic other things. And I think personalisation is fantastic. And it does show your audience that you've got a good integrity of data, but you have to make sure you've got that clean data and some really great data hygiene processes as well behind it.
We do stuff by site, so we did write a mail out recently with specific offers for that site. We've got a new site opening in SW11 very soon, so we'll probably send a mail out to the kind of database for restaurants in that area of London as well. So hey guys, we've got another bun in the oven, as it were. But yeah, that's as far as we go with personalisation. Obviously, once we've added that vegan and vegetarian thing, that's another way that we'll be able to tailor it. But in terms of personalising it, it's either area demographic or that is about it.
That's absolutely fine. Walk before you can run, hey?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's just all about knowing your customers and what they respond to as well. Like, I take a lot from social media. Like, I oversee the social media as well for the brand, and you see what people like, you see what people engage with. So in a way, that's personalising it as well. You can see if something flops on Instagram, that's not an image that's going to make it into our email. We use the very best of the best, because we only email out about once a month, other than the other loyalty emails, which we'll talk about it in a minute, I think. We just like to keep it quality, and we like to keep it relevant, and see what they respond to. Just don't ever force it. I think our brand tone of voice is we just like to keep it natural, we like to keep it flowing, we write it like we would say it, and I think it's very, very clear sometimes when a brand is forcing a tone of voice and they're trying to be something they're not. It's just cringy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so important. I always feel as though when you go to a restaurant, it's like the equivalent of seeing someone around with their friends. But when you receive an email from them, it's a bit like that one-to-one conversation, and you're seeing them away from the influences of everyone else, and you're seeing them for who they are. And I love the fact that with your emails and a lot of other emails that I receive as well, there is that constant tone of voice that comes across in your emails. And I've started to notice as well brands sort of talking, I guess, the way that customers do as well. And I've seen more emojis coming into play as well, which I can see that you are very happy about.
So happy. We like to keep it light on the punctuation, particularly exclamation marks. It's just not anything that makes up any part of our brand language. You know, used it in other brands, absolutely, that I've worked for, but with us, exclamation marks are a no-go. Our site managers actually manage a lot of the social media content themselves, so I'm forever saying, don't use if it feels like it needs an exclamation mark, use an emoji. And I feel like they can punctuate things. I think it helps keep the word count lower as well. And you know, I just think it's more 2018, to be honest.
It is, yeah, absolutely. And with exclamation marks, I always feel like it reads shouty almost.
Exactly.
And I used to say, it's like a rule of thumb, if an email reads as shouty, it's a pretty fair bet that the spam filter will interpret it as spam at the end of the day. Absolutely. Because they're programmed to think like we are. So yeah, I think you're absolutely on the right lines. I wouldn't necessarily recommend exclamation marks or too much kind of over punctuating, anything too punchy really. And I think something that you guys do really well, and it's a concept that you've taken on really well, is creating those moments in emails. And the fact that your emails are so memorable. Do you want to tell us, I know we've talked a little about the GDPR recommissioning email, but do you want to remind us what the subject line of that one was? I find this amazing.
I mean, we did two, because we had kind of like the hard sign-ups, which was just to let you know you're still on our database, it's all fine. That email title was, you won't lose your free, in brackets, shit. And then on the actual GDPR one, it was, don't lose your shit, in brackets, free. So yeah, and that got through all the spam filters. People were really looking forward to our GDPR email as well. We sent ours out quite late in the day, and we got, honestly, I've got a couple of dozen emails in the week leading up to it saying, guys, if we missed your GDPR email, you're the only ones that we don't want to kind of lose touch with, please. Which I found really, really gratifying. Although, you know, I can't take the credit. I didn't set up the email system, but yeah, it was.
Take the credit. It's genius. I would.
Yeah. So when we sent that out, people responded. We had a really, really high recommissioning rate, and we've actually got. In all of the brands I've worked for, I've got about 10 years experience, 8 years in email marketing, and honestly, we've got the highest open rate, which is something that makes me very, very proud. Awesome. And tells us that we're doing something right, but never rest on your laurels. You know, that open rate could be 10% higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Aim for the sky.
That's what I'm striving for.
Definitely. Well, what we're going to discuss now is about random acts of kindness in email, and ultimately this is one of those things that makes email so memorable. And when you remember something, that's when you know that you've been human in your emails, and it's when people will ultimately make that connection, that emotional engagement with you, and that's where loyalty springs from. So we've talked a little bit about the fact you can send out birthday emails, for example, and you guys send out your hippie birthday emails. Tell us a bit about that.
So we do the hippie birthday emails. We send those out to our database holders, and the code, it's a QR code. They get a side and a main course, and that will last for 2 weeks in the area of their birthday. If you know, our staff are very much trained that if someone comes in and says, oh, it's our birthday, we say, oh, guys, you know, sign up so you get this next year. But then we'll always give them a treat. We'll give them a drink, or we'll bring them out a slice of our filth pie, our dessert with a candle in. We like to kind of empower our staff to be generous, and if they are sort of code email holders, then they get that. Every year we encourage them in that email that we send out saying, tell your mates to do the same so you can celebrate on their birthday, and it works so well. Again, post GDPR, I've had so many emails from people saying, oh guys, I'm so sorry I forgot. Again, it's fine, even if it's beyond their birthday, I'll send them out the code. If they've been on the database. Like I said, I've got to sign back up to my favourite emails, so stuff happens. But yeah, it's about being generous, it's about helping people celebrate. Everyone loves a birthday. you know, you have your person who comes in, takes their side, comes in on their own, takes their side, their burger, and has a tablet. But in general, like, it's nice if people bring their friends, they want to come and celebrate. You know, we love a party, they're our business. So.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's awesome. And like you mentioned about the whole, you know, free something on your birthday, who wouldn't want that? And for me personally, when I've eaten out, and I've had, in my time, hundreds of offers, you know, percentage discount vouchers, that sort of thing. And I couldn't tell you one of them now. However, I can tell you about when a restaurant has created that moment for me, that special sort of, either the moment for someone's birthday. I took my husband once to this awesome restaurant in London. If you get a chance to go, you definitely have to go. You get to eat curry and feel posh about it. It's called the Cinnamon Club. It's in Westminster. Excellent food there. And I actually booked the table on the Book a Table website. And when you book, they say, do you have any special extras? Or is there anything, do you want to request anything else other than just the booking? And I think it's interesting that they've got that, because that's a clear indication, right, that people do want something else as well as just the food. They're there for a reason. They actually want to create a memory. So I love the fact that you do that in your emails. You have the freebies. And that's ultimately all about, for me, that's as human as you get, really, because humans are memorable, right? And so should the email be. And we've talked about a lot of really cool concepts. There's loads of things that I guess our listeners all want to be doing, and loads of goals as email marketers. And there's so much for you guys to think about. This brings us on to our next topic, really, which is that sorry seems to be the hardest email, because what happens when you make that crucial error and you hit send, it's too late. I used to look after a homewares company back in my previous life at an email company, and my phone started ringing one time where I received an email from them. It was a live send, and in the subject line we had block capitals, Rob's test, followed by 20 of your least favourite things, Rosie, those exclamation marks. Yay. And the question the client asked me was, is it possible to, and I quote, suck back an email? I said, no, it's not actually. So be warned, anyone listening in, if you're not sure if it's possible to suck back an email, it's definitely not. When that send button has been hit, it's gone. So it's always great to have a plan in place. I think the apology email, there's actually a lot of power behind it, because when you're saying sorry, again, this is such a great human trait and the side of your business to get across. I think, again, although if there's been a mistake, that can sort of feel bad, but when someone is seeing that openness and that honesty and that vulnerability of you, they're actually seeing the human side of your company, and believe it or not, they're making an emotional engagement by reading it. And you can pretty much guarantee that their reaction when they read that apology email is actually far better than their reaction when they read the one with the mistake in it. Have you seen any apology emails going out or any fails, Rosie?
Only this week, actually.
Yeah.
I've never done it. Much worse. Well, I'll be quadruple checking the next one I send out. This week I had one from Liz Earle, and it said something about, we're so sorry for what happened, or something like that was the subject line. So I thought, oh, I never even saw the first one, I don't know what this is. Clicked on it, and there was just this big flashing image with like 50% off this. It wasn't like a specific discount code, it's like a clearance sale thing. And then at the top there was this tiny little text bar that said, sorry for the technical glitch, everything's mended now. And there's like 2 more panels of just flogging stuff to me, and I was like, well, firstly, I didn't see the initial error, and then secondly, like you've made it the subject line, but then actually there's nothing to say sorry apart from this tiny little barely visible thing. I just thought it was a bit lame.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they could have done more with that, surely.
If you're going to go to the trouble of sending out an apology email, at least
admit that there's a problem.
Exactly, and clarify a bit, and
definitely.
Like we discussed before, maybe give a discount just to say, there you go, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Have a little treat on us. I think that would be the strategy I'd take if I made a mistake.
Switch it into an opportunity always. And I think something with this homewares company that I worked with, they actually did a really smart thing, and I thought this was actually pretty genius. They straight away set up a Facebook group called Rob's Fan Club, or a group on their own Facebook page rather, and they invited everyone who had received that email to join Rob's fan club and wish him well and assure everyone that he's new, he's extra keen, he got a little bit ahead of himself, and why not, let's all wish him well in his brand new job. And actually the response to that was phenomenal. I mean, they had a massive database anyway, and the engagement level on that email was through the roof compared to their other ones, and it just showed firsthand that there's an opportunity in this, and that was the one that people engaged with. It was the apology email, and they saw the human side. They felt for this poor Rob, who's probably getting shouted at, and I hope he wasn't, because actually it turned out to be a positive thing for the brand. And I think if, for everyone listening, something else I'd love you to get from this, if you forget everything else I say, please remember this one thing, which is have a plan, because an apology email doesn't send itself, and sometimes when you're in that situation, a mistake has gone out, you don't know what to do. I've seen people flap before, I've heard people cry over an email. Have an apology email ready to go. And what I would suggest to everyone listening is, off the back of this webinar, go back to your desks, free up some time, or do it now if you can, but create that email and have a subject line drafted, ready to go, have some content blocks created, and have a plan in place for what opportunities could you create from this. So that could be an offer, it could just be, I don't know, like what this homewares company did, change it into a Facebook fan club, absolutely anything you want, but invite your readers to actually engage with you and be part of that whole situation, because honestly, it's not so bad. It's probably worse in your mind than it is in the real world, really. So I guess on that positive note, let's talk about one final thing, Rosie, that all email marketers suffer from. We all love to hate this. So it's fear of the send button, right?
Wow, the fear is real for me. The first email I sent since working for Meat Liquor was actually the GDPR email.
Wow.
So I mean, it was really
the initiation.
Go hard or go home. And like I said, we sent out quite close to the deadline just because we wanted to get it all right, and we had these two databases, and and I had the massive fear. I had one of your guys kind of on a conference call with our GDPR guy as I was pressing the button. And I'm not afraid to admit that actually on the next set of emails as well, my second one, Gemma, my account director here, actually held my hand throughout that, verbally down the phone, and it's massively overwhelming, especially when you know that your customers like your content, so there's that expectation there. Secondly, if you've got a really big database, that's terrifying too. And there's a margin for error in everything, but you've just got to take a deep breath, put your big girl pants on, and do it. I used to work for a law firm, and I had an assistant there, and I actually used to make her hit the button on it. And I've had to grow up and just do it myself now.
It is a terrifying thing.
It really is.
I actually think if you're an email marketer, that's kind of disguised as a thrill seeker, right? Because that adrenaline, I would personally not want to do it. So I'll take my hat off to you guys. But I guess there's some tips that we can give you to help you get over the fear of that all-important send button. And for me, it all begins with test again. I think as well, you have to make that decision as to how much you're going to test before I do what I can only call spray and pray, which is hit the send button and just hope that everything works out, because there's only so much testing you can do. I would say as well, when you're reading through your email, reading that content, read it out loud to yourself. When you read things in your head, your brain fills in the gaps, right? And it knows what it's expecting, and it will tell you that that's what you've written. But if you've made a typo, something hasn't quite made sense, my classic is I don't finish a sentence. So read it out loud for yourself, because that's number one way to find out if it reads correctly. So check your links as well, so do some test sends, check all those links are live and working. Check the list that you're sending to is the correct list as well. Just double check on everything, have someone else proofread it, and then take a big deep breath and hit send, and show the send button who's boss, I guess. And for me as well, worst case scenario, if you have any issue with your email, this is just a learning. I love the thought of fail fast, which means if you're going to make a mistake, make it now, learn from it, and log what you've learned as well, because as a business, you don't want to make the same mistake twice, and you're only going to get better in this game. Okay, so if we've had any questions in, we can respond by email, but we've actually had a couple during this webinar. So the first question we've got in is, what's the right time to send an email? Rosie, what time do you send your emails out?
This is where I expose a slightly weird side to myself. I've got a real thing around the number 27.
Okay.
Any content that I schedule that obviously is at 27 minutes past. It really is. I don't know why. It's a superstition thing. I'm not even a superstitious person. Give me a ladder, I'll walk under it. But there's something about this. But in terms of the science of it, I think it's different in terms of sectors. When I worked for a university and we emailed students, we kind of did it mid-afternoon when they're flicking their phone, and there's no point in sending it at 9 in the morning because, you know, not to generalise, but they're not going to be awake then. When I worked for the law firm, we sent it out first thing in the morning because a lot of our customers are commuting to work and they're clicking through their emails then, and we had better open rates. But again, it's about testing, I think. I think you need to send them out and see when you get better open rates. If you use an agency like yourselves, you need to ask them about the sector. I think it's, you know, I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Test again, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it really will vary from company to company. When we say test, I guess it's kind of simple to do. I would just try sending your emails for a week at a particular time, try it the next time, the next week, and just see which one consistently gets you better time. But the other thing to highlight with timing of sending an email is that if there was a single right time to send an email, for example 11 a.m, that would quickly become the worst time to send an email because it would otherwise be known as a spam o'clock. If every email marketer says 11 a.m, that's the time, our inboxes would go nuts, right?
Sure.
So I'd say don't worry too much about what other email marketers are doing, find out what's right for you. Okay, next question we've got is, what is a good open rate? So what should we be aiming for? If someone's brand new to doing this.
Again, it depends on the sector, I think. I know our open rate's good, you know, but it really depends. Again, using the law firm as an example, there was, I think 20% was outstanding for the sector, but it was actually quite low. It was around 15%, I think, for the sector was the average. But that's dry content. We weren't really doing anything other than selling and just sending them information about like, updates to the law, etc., etc. So again, it all depends.
It does.
Sorry, I don't have a more prescriptive answer.
Yeah, I completely get the question. I think if you're new to email marketing, you just want to know if you're doing okay. If you were to prize a benchmark from me, not that I love giving out a good open rate, so I don't believe there is one, but I would say a nice starting place to aim for is roughly 20%. If you imagine you open about 1 in 5 emails yourself, on the larger scale, that kind of works out to about 20%-ish, although it's not an exact science. But for me, my preferred stat that I actually would rather look at is the click-to-open rate. Yeah. Because that shows you how well did the subject line meet my reader's expectation, how did the content meet the subject line's expectation, and there's so much more information in a click-through rate rather than just an open rate, because you're not going to get everyone. But if someone's opened their email and not clicked on it, that to me would indicate there's something in the content that's not relevant or not interesting for them, whereas the person who is really engaged is the one that opens but then goes on to click, which is always a positive one. We've got one final question which we'll go through this morning, and if we've not got through your questions, as we said, we'll follow you up with an email after this webinar. But this final question we'll go through is, what works better, sending from a company name or from a person's name?
Oh, I mean, I've always done it from a company name, because that's who you sign up to, and I think depending on, you know, I think that can be confusing. It might be better for, I don't know, always a company name.
Test it
for me.
Test it and see what works for you as a business. And I think it does depend on what sector you are and if you've got that freedom to send from a person's name, because for F&B it might not always be the case, whereas if you're in, say, retail or more B2B even, you might have the option there. It might naturally present itself as an option. What I've seen from working with clients in the past, and it's quite interesting actually, I tend to see a higher open rate on a person's name. But further to that, when we did testing on whether the name is a male name or a female name, what do you think it's going to be?
Females for females? Females
and females, there we go. Yeah, absolutely. So I've always seen a higher open rate if an individual's name is a female name. And my personal highest open rate name I've ever seen is a Sophie. Don't know why, but it seems to do the job. So if you want to go out and start hiring loads of Sophies, put them in a marketing position, push that send button on support Sophie. That's the way. Great. Okay, so we've reached the end of our webinar, and we've got to the end of our questions. Like I said, we'll follow anyone up whose questions we've not answered as well. We're also going to be sharing this webinar on our website if anyone wants to listen back. But feel free to contact Rosie and myself as well on Twitter. You can see our Twitter handles on the screen in front of you now. But also, Conic is going to be at Restaurant Bar Tech Live on the 25th and 26th of September, and that's at the Excel in London. And you can find us at stand 2870. So we hope to see you there. So thanks once again to all our listeners, and thank you, Rosie, as well, for joining me this morning. And from Rosie and I and all of us at Conic, we wish you a great day. Thanks for joining, and we hope to see you soon.